So if you couldn't tell, I'm extremely bullish on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Blockchain technology has something to offer we haven't seen in a long time. We're talking about the next infrastructure of the internet 3.0. I am so bullish on Bitcoin. The fact that it has the scarcity, the fact that it has the properties that are perfect for today's day and age. We're talking about monetary policy. We're talking about inflation. All these issues are rising. It's so bullish for Bitcoin. But I do want to explore ultimatums or doomsday scenarios for Bitcoin. We should all know about this. I'll probably be selling if I see any of this news like coming into fruition. And we could also look at doomsday scenarios to see if somebody was over exaggerating so that you guys don't have FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, you know, when somebody comes out with some negative information on Bitcoin. As long as Bitcoin is positive in the long run, we are most likely good. But in this video, I'll go over some situations where potentially I'll sell all of my Bitcoin, every single, you know, coin I own, if any of this happens. Keep watching. What's going on, everybody? Alex back with another cryptocurrency video, and today we're going over a couple subjects. The first one, we're going to be going over ultimatum scenarios that keep, you know, cycling around Bitcoin, things that people talk about over and over again. We're going to go over doomsday scenarios that are actually real versus, you know, fake, right? And some technological knowledge that everybody should know when looking at these fundamental news situations. And then, of course, I'm going to go over how to take this information in the right way and look at it from a different perspective. Now, before we jump into the video, guys, if you didn't know, I sell a course called Fundamental Secrets. If you wanted my exact buy and sell calls, as well as everything I'm doing in cryptocurrency, 100 plus videos, you know, pre-recorded. I'm talking about a legitimate course here, guys. Go to thefundamentalsecrets.com and apply for your spot in our course. Also, do me a favor, follow me on Instagram. I'm doing buy calls. I'm talking about cryptocurrency. I've been very active on Instagram. Guys, definitely follow me on Instagram. And if you appreciate this content, of course, feel free to smash the like button. Let's get this video to at least 2,000 likes. That's my new benchmark. That's my goal for my channel. So do me a favor, hit that like button. And if you haven't already subscribed, guys, this is the #1 cryptocurrency channel on the internet. We talk about money, finance, cryptocurrency, how to make money in this market, et cetera, et cetera. I try to keep it down to earth, and I back up pretty much everything with facts. I'm not perfect. You know, I'm a human just like you. But we can share this human experience in cryptocurrency. Again, guys, hit that subscribe button. Let's jump into the video. Now, the first thing I have to do is define ultimatum, because this will be ultimate situations that, you know, Bitcoin could potentially run into. So ultimatum means a final demand or statement of terms, the rejection of which the result in retaliation or breakdown in relations, okay? Now, the reason why something like this is important to understand these ultimatum situations is because Bitcoin is being attacked by almost everybody. It's a peer-to-peer technology, and there's some bankers and people with a lot of power that don't like what's going on in blockchain technology and the decentralization power of the people. Get what I'm saying? Now, I will say the vast majority of the people that talk about these situations usually don't understand what Bitcoin has to offer and the fact that it's a peer-to-peer technology. This is like the same type of people that I would have called the internet back in the day, you know, like a fad or just like a little trend. We all know that cryptocurrency is not a fad. It's not a trend. It's here to stay. You know, it's the next internet. You just have to, you know, research and understand what it is. And I noticed that a lot of people have a lack of understanding in that area. In fact, some of the articles that we're going to be diving into are well-respected people on an institutional level that still does not understand what peer-to-peer technology and decentralization means. That shows that you guys are very far ahead. For example, let's look into this article. It talks about more common Bitcoin killing situations or dying scenarios. The article is titled, "Bitcoin is supposedly dead, but not quite." Let's go over a couple quotes. As early as 2010, Tim Hartford, the undercover economist, in his article, he said Bitcoin can't be a currency. And this is when Bitcoin was at the price of 23 cents. The following year, we have somebody else coming out with an article titled Bitcoin is dying. This is when Bitcoin was at $7.80. In June 2013, when Bitcoin was $111, New York Magazine said Bitcoin sees the Grim Reaper. Right? 3 months later, Bitcoin price actually soared to $607. You guys know Bitcoin right now is about $23,000. Fast forward 4 years, in September 2017, with the price at $4,591, you know, predictions about the demise of the cryptocurrency and, you know, specifically Bitcoin in the whole market, a whole bunch of people started coming out of the, you know, woodworks. We had Seeking Alpha come out with a, you know, article saying the death of Bitcoin, and obviously was talking bad about, you know, the recent bubble pop. Then we actually had an explosion of Bitcoin. It reached, you know, $19,499 on December 18th, 2017. And when the value dropped, more critics started coming out of the woodworks for some reason. They were saying that this is the end of Bitcoin, you know, when the price of Bitcoin was only like $11,583. This article is basically showing how Bitcoin has resisted all the fear mongering and that people should have probably ignored headline news, for ultimatums with Bitcoin dying or something like that. You should definitely do a little bit more research and understand where you're getting your information from. If you look at headline news, for example, and a good book on this is Trust Me, I'm Lying, but if you look at headline news, supposedly Bitcoin already died 250 times. But Bitcoin, you and I both know, is not going anywhere. Ironically, Bitcoin reaches all-time high as we speak. It's at $23,000, which people thought was not going to happen. It's something out of a comic book, to be honest. I mean, honestly, if we were to compare this to a comic book, since we're on the subject, it would probably be like Wolverine. I mean, people kill him, people talk bad about him, people stab him, shoot him, and he always comes back for some reason, and he does better when he does come back. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. People were trying to take it down for years. We had China trying to ban it. We had all this regulation, and it comes back stronger every single time. But even though it does come back strong, there are natural phenomena that could potentially destroy Bitcoin. We're going to talk about it, right? One example is given in this article, and the article is titled, "The One Thing That Can Destroy Bitcoin Is Happening Today." This article was created 4 months ago by Tony Spilotro. In theory, Bitcoin cannot be stopped or killed. Actually, technically, even without the internet, if somebody took away the internet, Bitcoin transactions can be successfully sent through something called a ham radio. But if there was, for example, something that can, knock down Bitcoin, the internet, the radio, and all communication amongst humans, it probably would be, something like the sun. As you can see in this chart right here, NASA actually is warning that the space weather can disrupt electrical generation, or like the connection with the internet or any type of Bluetooth, any type of connection. This could lead to widespread electrical distributions. Honestly, I don't really buy it because if something like that happened, then all communications would go down. You wouldn't be able to buy food from your grocery store if the internet went down. I'm sure you'll be worried about things much bigger than worrying about, with the price of Bitcoin if the internet went down. It would go into like catastrophic mayhem.
I just want one pack. No, not one pack.
So when we're talking about, I don't know, like a solar flare, or we're talking about like a big asteroid kind of destroying the earth, I don't think it really matters in those situations. What really matters is when we still have an internet, there's no like catastrophic boom or something, and Bitcoin's down. That's what really matters. And the only thing that could potentially really do that is quantum computers. Okay, this is like the only situation where I'm a little bit negative. But what are quantum computers? Quantum computers are computers that use quantum phenomena such as superposition to perform computation. So instead of using the conventional binary codes of like ones and zeros in computing today, quantum computers use qubits to represent information. Qubits actually include ones and zeros, but they also include a superposition state from the ones and zeros, so it gives it more room to work. And what it basically means in a simple way is that they have an unlimited amount of resources when it comes to quantum computers. So if qubits are the only variable, in the difference between a regular computer and a quantum computer, we have to understand what they are, right? These qubits have the capabilities to solve interfactorization that underlines the encryption of cryptographic technology. And qubits can actually solve this cryptographic technology, or the same technology under blockchain technologies, way faster than standard computers. So instead of taking millions of years to crack a cipher, you can go and do the same thing, that a regular computer can do in years in a couple of hours. And believe it or not, there's been a lot of claims that people have had quantum computers. The first claim was back in 2019 when somebody came out with an article saying, "Can Google break Bitcoin?" This article was by Billy Brambrough on October 2nd, 2019. And he basically goes on to say that Google claims to have built a quantum computer and claims to have quantum supremacy. So basically they have kind of all the control over quantum computers. To show the power of the computer, they actually did some calculations that on a regular computer should take about 10,000 years. They did it in 200 seconds with the same, quantum computers. But the question remains, can it take down Bitcoin? It can, solve those easy computations, but can it actually take down Bitcoin, right? The underlying encryption technology, can it break that? Could it solve classical equations quickly enough to crack Bitcoin and the encryption of the internet? So this is a quote from another article from the chief executive officer of Crypto Compare. He basically said cryptocurrencies can be updated with quantum resistant tech. And this is very true, right? So even if it could crack it, there is cryptocurrencies that have quantum resistance. He goes on to say that this is just a continuation of the age-old arms race between the cracker and the encipher. So you don't really have to worry. Cryptocurrencies have been updated in quantum resistance, especially with Ethereum 2.0. Currently, they're working on quantum-resistant technology for the platform. Now, let's talk about the supercomputer because I think it's important, right? The Google supercomputer. At the time, they only had about 53 qubits at the time that I'm writing this video. And to actually, crack Bitcoin, you would need about 1,500 qubits. Maybe there's ways of solving this issue, but right now, Bitcoin cannot be cracked with 53 qubits. So this is kind of reminds me of a story, when China discovered gunpowder, but didn't fully implement gunpowder until hundreds of years later. Speaking of China, let's talk about the time China said that it can destroy Bitcoin. Actually, by Billy Bambrough on December 5th, 2020, he made this article titled, "Can China Destroy Bitcoin?" Now, China did get pretty far with their quantum computer. Quote, "This achievement firmly established our country's leading position in international quantum computing research." A team of researchers in China said in a statement alongside a paper published in the journal Science on Thursday, outlining how this quantum computer called Zhuzhong, which is a prototype for the quantum computer, just took over 3 minutes to complete a task that the world's fastest traditional computer would take more than 600 million years to complete. So that's literally almost 100 trillion times faster than today's supercomputers. But this is an actual threat. China has shown hostility to Bitcoin in the past, right? They try to ban it. They do everything in their power to manipulate it, right? So this actually questions Bitcoin's future, when it comes to quantum resistance and computers. Quote in the article, "This machine is unable to solve the factoring problem. This is crucial to decoding encrypted information." According to the quantum researcher quoted by the South China Morning Post, many see that China's developments further evidence that quantum computer research is accelerating and could have real-world ramifications. Though the prototype cannot solve encrypted information due to the inability and factoring problems, it still means that this research is a huge step for quantum computers. This specific research document, "Quantum Computational Advantage Using Photons," gives us some information about the direct study and research done by China to use a technique called Boston sampling to demonstrate quantum computer advantages. Basically, this is the Chinese researchers' scientific study if anybody wants to read it. They write that the blockchain integrity is actually at stake due to quantum computing. Despite the developments achieved in China and Google, this doomsday scenario still shows some distance away. They actually suggest that the risk of quantum computers can turn, Bitcoin into an offset by transitioning to a new type of cryptography called post-quantum cryptography, which is considered to be inherently resistant to quantum attacks. Here's the problem solver, guys. So I still see, the Bitcoin doomsday thing, it's very far away, guys. As they develop more quantum computers, there will be quantum resistant technologies that come out parallel to it. So personally, I think Bitcoin's safe. I really do. But if they do come out with quantum computers or something like that, I'm sure Bitcoin would have an upgrade to the protocol that would make it quantum resistant instead of just it going to zero and everybody losing their money, right? But let's jump into another article because I am not qualified to speculate on quantum computers. This article pertains to more research that's been done by quantum computers and cryptography specifically, such as Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. The main focus of this article will be answering the following questions. 1. How many Bitcoins can be stolen if a sufficiently large quantum computer was available? 2. What can one do to mitigate the risk of Bitcoins being stolen by an adversary with a quantum computer? 3. Is the Bitcoin blockchain inherently resistant to quantum attacks? So if you guys didn't know, Bitcoin uses something called a public and a private key, and this is actually specifically called asymmetric cryptography. A private/public key pair is generated in such a manner that the two keys have a mathematical relation between them. Now, you guys should know this, but as the name suggests, the private key should never be shared with anybody in the world. I don't care if it's your friend, I don't care if it's your mom, I don't care if it's your family. Do not share your private key. But the public key is used kind of similar to like an email address where everybody can see it and send you crypto. This allows anybody to produce a digital signature using their private key that can then be verified by anybody that has the corresponding public key. And if you didn't know, this scheme is actually very commonly used in the financial industry to prove the authenticity and the integrity of some transactions, depending on what they're doing. But let's go more into asymmetric cryptography because it's important. Okay, so it's based on a mathematical principle called the one-way function. This principle dictates that the public key can be derived from the private key, but not the other way around. You can't reverse that. This scenario could be compared with like bread, for example. You can derive bread from wheat, but you can't derive wheat from bread. Once it's there, it's there. You can't go the other way around. At the time, all known classical algorithms to derive the public key from the private key required a ridiculous amount of effort and time to perform a computation, at least back in the day, and therefore not practical. However, in 1994, the mathematician Peter Shor published a quantum algorithm that can actually break the security assumption of an asymmetric cryptography. Okay, let me show you this picture. This opened the gateway for quantum computers because this means that if you have a sufficiently large quantum computer, you can use this algorithm to derive a private key from its corresponding public key and thus falsifying the digital signature. Now let's get into some specific addresses because we have different types of addresses if you didn't know, and some of them are vulnerable to quantum computers, some of them are not. The two I'm talking about is P2PK and P2PKH. Now, back in the day, before quantum resistance, they actually used to generate the public key from the private key with P2PK, okay? But this has problems. It actually lacks a mechanism to detect mistyping. Addresses were very long and longer than what they are now, and the processing time was ridiculous. Quantum computers can easily derive private keys from P2PK addresses. Actually, the Bitcoin developers realized that people with these quantum computers can derive P2PK addresses. So right now, there's about 2 million Bitcoin waiting to be stolen by a quantum computer, since the public key from any P2PK address is actually on the public blockchain. Believe it or not, but back in the day, they used to put your public key on a blockchain, but the page was way too big to decipher, so it was hard for any computer to do it. But with something like a quantum computer, they might be able to crack it. So they came up with a solution. So instead of actually putting your private address on the internet for everybody to see, they actually made a second way to derive a public key, which is the P2PKH, which is pay to public key hash. So instead of actually giving out the public key, they give you out a hash of the public key. And a hash is a one-way cryptographic function. Thus, the public key is not directly revealed with the hash. Once a transaction occurs by the owner, the public key is revealed. So the quantum computers can't obtain the private key with the P2PKH addresses that have not been used before. And the vast majority of them have the new updated P2PKH, if that makes sense. As you can see from the red line on the graph, there are about 4 million BTC, P2PK addresses and reused P2PKH addresses that are vulnerable to quantum computers. And that's about $91 billion. That's pretty big. As you can see on the graph, P2PKH was used a lot since 2010, and people have been trying not to use the P2PK, right? Currently, predictions estimate that it would take about 8 hours to derive a private key from the public key using a quantum computer. So as long as cracking the key takes more than 10 minutes, which is the typical, time to mine a Bitcoin block, then the quantum computers can't crack the private keys from the P2PKH addresses. So those are the vulnerabilities. Just understanding the difference will get you far ahead of most people. Most of you probably not going to understand what I'm saying. Just understand that there's been vulnerabilities in the past and they have fixed it before, which shows that, Bitcoin and people behind Bitcoin are resilient. This is peer-to-peer technology, guys. We're here to make the world move forward, right? It's really interesting that cryptocurrency in general is really good with their communities. All right, so since we're talking about these crazy ultimatum, subjects and stuff like that, we need to look at these scenarios not in a Bitcoin perspective, because, that's a little bit of bias, but from a world perspective. See, when we look at China with their quantum computer discovery, we have bigger problems to worry about, right? The United States is fighting a digital war against China. The United States is losing this war right now. Literally, China is doing much more, than quantum computers. They're attracting large crowds with technological discoveries such as artificial intelligence. For example, one of the biggest events I've ever seen, which is actually comparable to the United States Super Bowl in China, was when an actual computer played, a real life person in this game called Go, which is a Chinese board game. The world's best professionals in this game went against Google's AI, and they actually lost. These battles represent the first times that a computer program was able to beat a top player in a full contest. And this was hailed as a big landmark for AI. And I think it's funny because, Americans over there watching football and stuff like that with oversized human beings throwing a ball around, a pigskin, right? While China is holding the same events with AI discoveries and technological advances. Is insane. Remember, at this point, if they turn off the internet and we cannot communicate with each other, it's pretty much the end of the world, and it's gonna be very hard to survive in general. Who cares about Bitcoin, right? So to conclude this video, guys, look, Bitcoin is not going anywhere. It's a peer-to-peer technology. In the past, they haven't been able to take down a lot of the peer-to-peer technologies that you guys know of, like the Pirate Bay and a lot of different situations, right? There's still a long distance until we can reach levels where they can actually hack Bitcoin. Right now, if we were to compare, quantum computers, they would be like in the medieval time, when it comes to advancements, right? It's gonna take them a long time to come up with an actual serious quantum computer that can do things like crack Bitcoin or hack, the government or whatever the case is, right? Cryptocurrencies are putting in quantum resistant technologies as well. You have to understand that, not just with Bitcoin, but other altcoins. Think of it this way. Bitcoin is like a virus that keeps updating itself with additional resistance to vaccines or forms of technology that is trying to compromise it, okay? It's always been an age-long battle between hackers and ciphers, guys. But that's it for this video, guys. If you like the quality of this content, hit like. If you don't, leave some constructive criticism. Subscribe for more video updates. And like I always say, if you don't get with it, you will get left behind. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Catch you in the next one.